left, right.
So it's wild today to be editing this SipTalk podcast because today we're talking about scams in the podcast. Today, somebody messaged every member of my company pretending to be me from obviously a random number. They didn't hack me, they just came up with a phone number and messaged people, "This is my new number. I need a favor." And they messaged a, a whole bunch of agents that work at the Julio Group requesting them to send gift cards, which is a scam. It's a crazy scam. It's happened before. We talk about it in this podcast, but just crazy timing on this one. I'd love your feedback on this podcast. So do me a favor and leave in the comments what you think about these scams. It's some crazy stuff. It's really some crazy stuff. So listen, enjoy, and give me your feedback. Thanks. This is Sip Talk. Grab a drink and enjoy.
Of course, let's go.
Cheers.
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 Episode 29 of Sip Talk, which is pretty exciting. I like the speed we're going in now. We're really cruising. Let me just ask real quick. James Boswell, the Bosinator. What are you drinking over there?
I am drinking dark rum on the rocks.
Dark rum. What kind of dark rum?
It's the same one that I was drinking from before, Bacardi Black.
Bacardi Black. Oh, yeah.
It won't pick up. Whatever.
Oh,
Bacardi
yeah.
Black.
It's because you're in a library.
Yeah.
I just pulled out some ice cubes to defrost. I'm going to do a little scotch. I like scotch. But I got to defrost these ice cubes first.
No, you just gotta squeeze them a little bit.
Yeah, no. Well, I cracked one of them, so now it only filled up halfway. I squeezed it too tight.
Yeah, I've got one of those spheres in my cup. It took me a minute to get it out of the mold.
Yeah, it takes a little bit. You got a sphere?
I got two of them.
All right, nice. So I don't know if you noticed. So we didn't talk about this a second ago. I changed the setup. What do you think? Better? Worse?
Good. It's about 90 degrees different.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. But at least I get to look this way, which is nice. Happy Tuesday, Rose. So we got a few people watching between TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. But I wanted
Glad to have all of them, by the way.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. We're glad each and every one of you guys. I did get some feedback on the YouTube podcast. Somebody telling a quick catfish story. Figured I would share that one because we were talking about catfishing.
Yeah, let's follow it up.
I was catfished. Anybody have any good catfish stories? Feel free to share them because I love these stories. I was catfished completely 2 years ago. The short version of my story, I video chatted with this person who I thought was Michael, and we talked at length for hours in the 3-week time frame. We decided to meet up at Applebee's just for drinks. So this guy walks up to me and says, "Hey, Eve, I'm Michael." I'm like, "Michael who?" He replies, "Michael, the one you've been chatting with for 3 weeks." I immediately said, "Check, please. I got to go. This is not happening." And I ran out of there so quickly. He's been blowing up my phone, asking for me to give him another chance. Nope. And I blocked him. Yikes. Yeah, man. I don't know the end goal with the catfishing. Like, what? At some point you got to rip the Band-Aid off and the leg falls off. Like, it's not.
Well, some people do it just for the thrill of pretending to be somebody else and they never intend on meeting. And then,
but that's mean.
it is. I'm not saying it's a good thing to do. I'm just saying that that's why. And then the other thing is if you can get deep enough into it, you might be able to get people to send you money or whatever. So you got some scammers out there that are just trying to pull that thread.
So I like that idea. I like the idea of asking for money. I heard some stories from one of the guys in the office, and he said he was doing like a dating app, like a Tinder type thing, and somebody took his face and cropped it onto a body and said he was, put like a picture of his dick in his hand and said he's going to share it to his whole contact list if he doesn't send him money.
No, I would say go ahead and share it. I'll explain.
Exactly. I mean, obviously we don't hold political office, but I think the easiest solution would be just, it's not me.
Yeah, I would even if I held political office, I'd be like, look, this is what happened, guys.
So many people that just want to do bad shit.
That's one of the reasons why I've never sent nudes and I never will, is just in case it would ever fall into the wrong hands. Like, it's easier to not have to explain something
I
like
want
that.
to I want a quick show of hands. And somebody give me a thumbs up if they've ever sent a nude. I'm really curious on this. Greetings from Hungary. Somebody already feedback about people asking for money. Obviously, I'm surprised. It's a girl saying that it was a guy that asked for the money, but I feel like the reverse would be much more likely.
Yeah, of someone pretending to be a female and trying to
A
do some
girl
male.
asking a guy for money, or a guy undercover as a woman.
Oh yeah. It doesn't matter whether or not you're actually a female. You could be just someone is pretending to be a female, either a female pretending to be a different female or a dude. But yeah, I would feel that men are going to be much more susceptible to sending money to some unknown female than.
I think guys are just dumb. So
Oh yeah.
I think that's a given that guys are gonna be the first to be like, oh, you need some money. I've been asked for money before.
I've never been catfished through dating, but back when I was looking for a new roommate for my apartment, there were a couple times where I got like catfish, and I knew it was a scam, so like nothing happened. And one of the times I let it play all the way through just because I wanted to see how they were going to try and make money off of me.
I'm always curious, like where the
So,
path goes. What is the path?
so what happened was they presented as someone who wanted to move in or whatever, and they were coming from like across the country is what their story was. And what they ended up doing was they mailed me a check that I was supposed to deposit for, I don't know, it was probably about $2,500 or whatever. They were
You were gonna pay their movers.
or something like that. So like when I saw the check, I looked at it and I was like, this looks really fake. So I took it to the bank and I asked the teller, I said, hey, this check looks really fake to me. Can you tell me if it's real? So she runs it under the lights and like in about 3 seconds she says, yeah, this isn't a real check. I said, that's what I thought.
I got you on this. So look, I got a check maybe a year or two ago for a little over 92 grand, 92,500 and some change, and it was supposedly from an investor who wanted me to hold this money so he could put a down payment somewhere. And it came in a FedEx envelope, like legit FedEx. It wasn't just dropped off by somebody. So it was legit FedEx here. And I held onto the check for a little bit. I was like, this obviously screams scam. Like nobody just sends you without much back and forth a check for almost $100,000. So I looked at the check. The check looked legit. I brought it to the bank, and they said it's a real check. It even had like the heat sensor where you rub it, it warms up, and the thing disappears. So I mean, you could.
So your check was better than mine because mine was basically a step above a photocopy.
Okay.
It didn't have any of the security features on it.
So look, so then I called the issuing company and asked them if they issued a check, and they said yes. And it was the real company. Like I googled.
Really?
It was the real company.
Okay.
Guess what I found though? Because I had to call back a couple times because I didn't want to put it in my bank account and
No.
flagged by like the fucking IRS or something. They had issued the check to someone else in that amount. Now, presumably, they were a big enough company to be writing $92,000 checks. There's a decent chance the check would clear through the bank,
Mm-hmm.
and then their accounting would catch it 2 weeks later or 2 months later, whenever, and be like, "We're 92,000 short in this account. Why is that?" And then see that they have two duplicate checks, and not know exactly which one is correct, but they do some investigation, and it would catch up with me that far down the line after I've written out whatever payment to whichever one of these guys.
Right. So the second half of the transaction is first you send somebody a check that they're supposed to cash, and then it's going to hit their bank account temporarily because the bank's going to assume that it's a good check. So you get 2,500 or 92,000 in your bank, and then the other side of it is they're going to ask you to send them payment for something and say, hey, can you return that money that I have, or
put it on a deposit with this party.
Yeah, whatever the case is. So now you take money out of your bank account, send it to them, and then a couple of days later, the bank realizes that this is a bad check, and they stop the transaction, and you no longer have the funds that you just deposited. So you're out whatever money you sent to the scammer, plus you didn't get the money that they gave you.
Exactly.
So yeah, I ended up not cashing the check, and I ended up like sending the information to the police, which with which I'm sure they promptly did nothing.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's really, we had somebody here. Don't get any ideas, online people. This is some shady shit. We had somebody here who, so every once in a while, somebody will email agents from here, and they'll make emails like Justin to Julia46 at Gmail, and email people saying, hey, I need you to get me a few $100 gift cards. And somebody did it from the company. So I have regularly, I'll text people and be like, look, if you don't recognize a number from me, you need to confirm with me. But the guy got like $600 worth of Google Play gift cards, scratched off the code, and texted the code to some number in New Jersey, and lost $600.
He's not getting that back.
He's not getting it from me either. I feel bad, but
yeah, but you're dumb.
But it's not. I mean, he was a newer agent too at the time, so I don't know what he was.
Right, but why? If I were to ever get a request like that from a boss, and I wasn't sure about it or whatever, I would immediately send an email or a work chat to that person
before giving
and
money.
say, "Hey, boss, I'm not really understanding why you need me to get $600 worth of this stuff. Can you explain to me?" So that way I can hear it directly from a channel in which I know they communicate with me.
Yeah, I mean, that would make sense, especially when it's a new number. And if you Google my name, you're going to get my phone number.
Yeah.
Part of my job is having public information so people can find me. Like half of what I do in my job is, trying to get my phone number in front of more people. So,
yeah, I had a good one when I was in hotels.
Which is what?
In terms of people trying to scam us. So the way it would work is they would call into the hotel knowing that they get the front desk, and they'd say, hey, can you connect me to room? And they would guess at a number.
Mm-hmm.
So like most hotels will do like 100. So 101 is going to be the first floor. 102 is the next room on the first floor, and then 201, 301, etc.
Yeah,
and so they would usually
have room 1 or 6. I feel like.
Well, actually, the hotel that I worked at did have those numbers. It was just rooms 1 through 21. But whatever the case is, they would guess at the room number, and sometimes they do some research. So, like even at the hotel that was like rooms 1 through 21, sometimes people would be like, "Hey, can you connect me to room 12?" And so what they would try and do is if I didn't verify some information from them, what they would do is if I just pass them through without asking any questions, it's going to ring through directly to that room. And then the room's going to answer. And now the person on the other line is going to say, this is so-and-so from the front desk. Your payment information, like for your room for the night came back bad. Can you please, can you just give me your credit card information again so that I can re-enter it into the system?
Brilliant. That's smart.
So, yeah. And I got those probably about once or twice a month. And
well, they must have been working.
It didn't work on me. But I'm sure that there are plenty of people that just sent it through. But our hotel was really strict about that kind of stuff. Of we didn't divulge guest lists, and if you called in or whatever, and you said, like, can I be connected with room 11 or whatever, I just say, you need to give me a specific name of the guest that you're trying to reach. I can't confirm whether or not anybody's here. You need to give me a first and last name.
Yeah. I want to know if anybody else has been scammed and what that scam looked like. Because I feel like it's just, but that's where I feel like as a society, like right now where people are not using critical thinking. Like you may have been burned by that once if it was like your second day. Like that, but I still think a smart person would just be like, somebody called up for this room, I should get more information. Protecting guest privacy isn't just forwarding calls. But if it was your first week, like I get it.
I don't know. That was drilled into me like on day one of training and stuff like that. Is
your attention.
Well, not specifically that scam, but just the general idea of guest privacy and guest security.
Yeah. I mean, we get so many scams for real estate. A lot of times it is so. There's a lot of ads out there for apartments where and it won't, because people are dumb, but they're not so dumb. Okay, it's my understanding also that some of the scams really target the dumbest people. So when you get an email that says, "Hi, I'm a Nigerian prince. I inherited $2 million," everybody knows that scam. Almost everybody knows that scam.
Well, no, those
So
emails are deliberately crafted to screen for people that are not going to be
intelligent.
gullible. They're
Exactly.
intentionally written poorly, and they're intentionally preposterous situations, so that way a reasonable person won't bite, because that's a waste of the scammer's time.
No,
They
they're
want to
cutting down
get
their
straight to
workload.
the
Yeah.
dumb people.
And they're eliminating anybody who has intelligence and going straight to the dumb people by saying, "Hey, I'm a Nigerian prince. I inherited $2 million. I need to get the money out of the country because my wife is in duress." She's
You know
going,
who the real victims are here?
"No, the
The
Nigerian."
Nigerian princes who no longer are trusted.
I had a Nigerian roommate when my first or second or third apartment in Queens through Craigslist. And typically, I mean, now being in real estate and knowing all the scams, when you hear, I mean, there's different things that I hear in my head that instantly click and I go, "That's a scam." And people are like, "How do you know?" I'm like, I just know. Like, I know the kind of mechanics of these online scams. So they're pretty easy to figure out. But yeah, I had a Nigerian roommate, and she reached out to me through Craigslist, which I didn't catch. I didn't even think anything of it at the time. I mean, but she ended up being a nice person. I think we FaceTimed.
Well,
Um,
she wasn't royalty though.
no, she was not royalty. And then she went crazy, and I didn't see her for 3 weeks. She just stayed in her room, and then she left, went back to Ohio. It's very strange.
But yeah, I feel bad for all the real Nigerian princes that genuinely have financial problems that they're looking to have somebody in the United States help, and nobody believes them anymore.
Somebody said working drive-through register. Someone said they gave a 20, and then they then gave change for the 20. That's a good one. I've seen some scams where people are kind of fast with the money, and they'll give you a 20 or something and ask for 2/10 and a 5, like
Yeah,
along those lines.
that makes me. Whenever I hear about stuff like that, it just makes me think about like whenever you go to a casino or whatever, how when you do exchanges with at the at the cage, where the money, they've got a camera on the ceiling, and
Yeah.
so like the person on the cage lays out all the money and stuff, so that way like the camera can record the interaction, so that way that stuff can't happen.
Yeah, well, they can, but they can catch it.
Yeah. Casino security is insane.
Well, I mean, I think it should be. A casino's pure money.
Well,
That's
right. I'm not saying it shouldn't be. I'm just saying that, like, if you want to talk about top of their game in terms of being able to catch anything that happens within like 30 seconds, casino security is where it's at. Like, my dad was in a casino once, and he hit like a small jackpot on a slot machine, and they don't give you the money. They just print out a little receipt that you can bring to the cage. And so like he was pretty excited. So like as the receipt's coming out, he pulls on the receipt a little bit and cause the receipt to like just pull just like maybe another inch of the casino's branded receipt or whatever. And security was there within like 15 seconds.
Wow.
Now,
I didn't even.
he didn't get in any trouble. It's not like he did anything wrong, but it was just one of
Yeah.
those ones where even something that small, casino security caught before he could even pocket the receipt.
Yeah. Well, and they were there. They were on top of him.
Yep.
Not beating him up, but like they were
No,
there.
it was just like, hey, look, we need to talk to you about this. There's a reason why we're here.
Yeah, they got somebody there. Here. That's crazy. Yeah. So the scam I was just talking about was what'll happen is somebody will advertise an apartment. It won't be preposterously low. It'll be like let's say $1,400 or which isn't like $600.
Isn't that preposterously low in New York City?
Well, but yes, it is, but it's not like stupid low because if you're moving, so New York City, a 3-bedroom apartment on average costs a 1-bedroom apartment in Manhattan on average costs about $3,000. So if you're moving from any other city in the U.S., $1,200 or $1,400 or $1,500 seems like a lot of money. So when you're navigating Craigslist and there's thousands of listings for 2,800, 2,400, 3,500, 4,000, and then you see it, a handful of listings at like $1,200, $1,400, you just assume that there's a handful of listings at this lower price range. You're going to settle with something that's not quite as nice, but you don't know. And the typical scam is, we're out of town, we own the condo, it was for our daughter, now she's studying at a different school, and we just want good God-fearing people in the apartment. So that's
Okay.
why we're putting it at a, we're very religious and we want to get someone who's religious. So that's why we priced it so low, because we really just care about a faithful, God-fearing person. And they get people like that. So, I mean,
Yeah, but how do they close out the scam? Once you
give them
respond to
money.
the ad?
You give them
Oh.
money, and you don't get to see the apartment in person because they're not there to show it. But you can pay, once you pay, that you can pick it up with the doorman or the keys to the doorman or something along those lines. But also, I have seen instances of people seeing apartments. I've heard stories, and I saw one instance of people seeing apartments with a real estate agent, and then they go to move in, and somebody else is living there. So I was one, and I've heard stories, but one time I was at Chase, and there were these three guys that were really pissed, and apparently they'd each written certified checks, 3 people, for $3,600 each.
Okay.
And they gave the checks to some guy who showed them the apartment. They showed up to the apartment with their move-in truck, and somebody was living there. And they're like, "What are you doing living in our apartment?" And like, "We moved in 2 weeks ago." They're like, "Yeah, but we saw the apartment a month ago. We're moving in today." And they were calling this real estate agent, who obviously was not a real estate agent. The number was disconnected. I mean, that guy just made a quick 10 grand.
Oh, so what he did is he knew how to find open listings or whatever, and pretended to be a real estate agent, took the money or whatever, and then the person who actually owned the apartment that was leasing it out had no idea about any of this. So this guy's just operating through some back channel that has no basis.
No, yeah, he's physically, stepping foot in an apartment. I assume he's probably like you could pass off better for like a more nondescript person. You have hair. People would be like, "Oh, the bald guy." I stand out a little bit more. But if you just show up with like, a baseball hat and a polo on or something like that, like for the most part, how is somebody going to be able to point you out again on the street in Manhattan?
Especially if you've got a fake name and fake business cards that don't have anything to do with your actual personal ID.
You know how easy it would be to make fake business cards?
It would cost you less than $20.
Yeah, $15 with shipping.
Right.
And you don't need that many.
Nope. In fact, it's probably best to do orders in small batches.
Yeah, that's true. Did I ever tell you the time when I worked at the car rental place in Queens, and this guy showed up, and he was speaking Spanish to one of the guys behind the counter. Guy behind the counter obviously speaking back to him in Spanish, so I don't know what's going on. Spanish is typically spoken pretty loudly. This is my perception of it. And
rapidly.
Yeah, and very fast. And they were having this conversation. It sounded to me like they were old friends. They knew each other. And they were going out for a while, joking, laughing, hitting the desk. And then the guy just sat there for like another 10 minutes. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm the manager of the Apple store at Best Buy. And the Apple store is closing down because it was in too much competition. The Apple store in Best Buy was in too much competition with the regular Apple store. So Apple has chosen to close down the Apple and Best Buy, and they're liquefying their inventory, and we're getting stuff for really, really good deals. So I can get you laptops for like super cheap." And, I was like, well, at the very least, if he's going to give me a brand new laptop at less than retail price, I could just resell it on Craigslist or eBay at retail. Seems pretty safe, right?
So the question is, why isn't he doing that?
Well, because he's an employee, so he's technically an Apple employee or something. So if he was caught doing that, he would get in trouble. But he could get a couple of computers with his employee discount, no problem. And so we drove him to Best Buy. Stopped at the ATM. I pulled out like $600 or something. At the time, a huge amount of money for me, because I think I had like $1,000 in my savings account and maybe $82 in my checking account. So whatever I pulled out was like more than half of my fucking net worth. And I gave him the money. We pulled into he goes, pull into the employee entrance. So we pulled in. We're in a separate parking lot on the side of the building. It's fenced off. And he walks off. and I'm with another guy who works for the same company, and doesn't come back. 10 minutes.
I was gonna say, I'm guessing you never saw him again.
10 minutes goes by. I'm like, well, whatever. He didn't even get his phone number. He just walked off with our money. 15, 20 minutes goes by, and we're like talking. I'm like, oh, one of us should go. So we go in. Hey, some guy said you walk around the store, can't find him. Now I'm like freaking out, like fuck. Like this is my rent money, fuck. And the dude just disappeared. And the security said, yeah, this happened just a couple months ago, but we obviously didn't know who it was. And of course, they wouldn't let us, the customers, go back and see their cameras. So, yeah, we were really screwed there. And I couldn't tell you that afternoon what the guy looked like. 50 to 55 years old, short cut hair, Hispanic.
Yeah.
Ish. Like, who am I describing in New York City? The next 800 people you're going to walk by in 3 blocks. Like,
yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, you have such little recourse.
And it's not a priority at all for the police. They don't care.
No, there's no win for the police.
Nope.
And a lot of times the guy's already spent the money. So am I going to take the guy to court, hire a fucking lawyer?
No, you're not going to.
It's not happening.
Yeah. So if you had just protected yourself and said, "You come back with the laptop. Here's the money. I'll give it to you once you come back to the car."
Wow. Yeah, exactly. But he had to use the money to buy I did. Somebody just said they bought their mom a laptop for Christmas in a sealed box. And when the mom opened it, it was a phone book.
Oh yeah,
that's brilliant. That's good, man.
One tip that I've heard from people: anytime that you buy something relatively expensive online, when you open up the box, just pop open your cell phone and take a video of you opening the box.
Why is that?
So that way, if it turns out that the object that you got is fake, so instead of a laptop, you get a phone book, you've got a video of you opening the sealed package to prove that you're not the one trying to scam people.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Because it only takes 30 seconds or whatever to take the video, and if it's good, you can delete the video. But if it's not, that video just saved you possibly hundreds or thousands of dollars, because now you've got a case when you go to Amazon or eBay or whoever and say, here's a video of me opening the product that was sent to me. This is why it's a scam.
Yeah, no, I like that idea. Yeah, man, but that's fucking scam artists, man. They got, like, first of all, the only reason that I would find acceptable to be scamming is that you're down and out. Like you can't think of any other option to make money.
There's always another option.
Which is my next point. But you're stuck on this idea and you can't think of anything else. So if your mind is there, I'm going to give you a bit of benefit of the doubt. But then still you're doing something that's just fucking evil. Like that's just a bad thing. Like it's bad karma. It's you deserve anything bad that happens to you. Like it's deserved, man, after that.
The only people that I think that it's okay to scam are the people that are actually out there trying to scam others. So if you're scamming a scammer, fair game. Yeah, but don't scam an innocent person.
But you just scamming innocent people, I think, is just really dirty. And I don't know. That's just it's really a shitty thing to do. And I was broke as fuck when I lost that money on that potential laptop. Which in retrospect, like you don't know everything until it happens to you. And and then your spidey sense gets stronger when it comes to this stuff. But yeah, you're not going to know all these fucking scams that are out there, and that's why I think it's important. If you're paying in fucking cryptocurrency for anything, like that should be your first red flag. But still,
I've done exchanges for cryptocurrency before. I mean, I did my homework and everything went fine, but I was super careful about it.
Yeah, but you're being careful about it. You're thinking critically. You're doing research. You're not just impulsively being like, oh, they want me to buy their MacBook for cryptocurrency, and you send them fucking $800 in Bitcoin, and the laptop doesn't work the next day, or it doesn't work that day.
Or you're not even going to get it.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Or you're paying somebody in fucking cryptocurrency for a product you haven't received.
right.
Like that should be a red flag right off the bat.
And that's on you.
So, oh man, yeah. Somebody just said you don't want to scam somebody that's got $500 in the bank. Well, that's basically where I was when I got.
Well, that's actually kind of your ideal target. Is
Well,
you want to present a too good to be true kind of an offer to somebody who doesn't have a lot of money, because their money is going to go so much further. So if I only had $500 in the bank and you're offering me something that's like a $2,000 opportunity, I'm much more likely to go for that than like right now. Like if you were to offer me a $2,000 opportunity that's huge risk right now, I'd probably say no. I don't need to roll the dice on this one. But if I was dead ass broke and here's a chance for me to be able to turn some quick money and it's a risk, I'm much more likely to go for it. So, like,
yeah, well, that's exactly. So, oh man, something about the black market. So I'll do a quick pivot here because I was in the office Saturday, and some of the guys in the office are going to a party on Friday night, and they came in there a little hungover, but it's my understanding that they got pretty lit before they went to a party. Go to the party, and one of the guys in the office grew up in Bosnia during a genocide that I'm not too familiar with, but it's a genocide. Apparently, you can look it up, and you'll learn a lot more details than I currently know. And another guy said he grew up gay, and that was really a difficult, really bad way to grow up, and he suffered a lot growing up. And then they were arguing which was worse, growing up gay or growing up in genocide.
Okay, there's no comparison there.
Well,
I'm sorry.
But each person had their own stance. They were deeply rooted, and what went through. And I didn't listen to the argument. Okay, the other person, neither person was in the room. I was hearing a recap of the story. These guys exaggerate, but it was my understanding it almost came to a fist fight, and they were like getting really animated, and one of them had to leave. So I just walked in and I said, one was looking at potentially growing up dead, and the other was looking at potentially growing up and having to fuck women. Like, there's a huge imbalance here. I don't know what the context of the argument was about, but I quickly chose my side of that argument.
And as difficult as women can be sometimes.
Yeah. I get it. It's a stressful position, but at the end of the day, one of them led to potentially being dead.
Yeah, and also, even if your own life wasn't directly threatened, like witnessing the extermination of a race around you is very different than having people around you not fully accept you for who you are. Like, one of which carries a direct threat of bodily harm and witnessing true atrocities versus not being able to express yourself in the fullest way.
I don't think everybody should express themselves in the fullest way. I don't think.
Right, but what I'm saying is,
I think sexually, unless you're going to start like flashing people in the street, you should be able to do what you want to do sexually. As long as
who cares what you do behind closed
doors?
doors?
You can find a suitable and agreeing partner.
Yeah, if you're not hurting anybody, who cares?
By all means, I love the fact that we're going in a direction of much more acceptance. Given a lot of times I have to challenge myself to kind of overcome the way I see things and the construct of things. And I don't agree with everything, but I don't have a problem with it. Like
You don't have to agree with it. Like,
it's
even
great.
if it's something that bothers you, like, as long as it's not something that's in your face every single day, if it's something that people are just choosing to do that doesn't affect you whatsoever, then who cares?
Exactly. Like um, but yeah, that was I wanted to share that story with you because I just I imagine myself being a bystander and just like interjecting and saying like how is this a conversation? How are we comparing?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't make sense. I don't know. I thought I would share that with you. What else is going on? What's going on in South Carolina that we're missing in boring New York City?
I have no idea. Like, my head is so deeply in the sand right now.
I mean, my head's always in the sand, so that's why I'm talking to you. I need, and that's why we're live for some viewer feedback here. But yeah, no, I mean, my head's in the sand. So.
Well, your idea about tonight, about talking about hardship and stuff, while growing up, we haven't really addressed.
Well, but that's and I'm talking about growing up in genocide or growing up gay. Like that's not exactly what I meant by the idea of kind of growing up in hardship and it shaping who you are and kind of establishing an internal drive for you. But that's what made me think of it. I think both of those situations would shape who you are as an adult. But going through a certain amount of adversity when you're in your formative years, I think is really, really important. Otherwise I don't think you have the drive or the ability to deal with shit as it gets flung at you throughout life.
Well, and the thing is, if you don't have to face any adversity when you're young, virtually nobody, it requires a truly special set of circumstances to have to go through your entire life where you're never going to fail and you're never going to face hardship. And so if you have a really easy, let's say, first 18 years of your life, where anytime you get, like, let's say you live with your parents through 18 through high school, and anytime you get in trouble or whatever, they find a way, they have the means to kind of bail you out, so to speak. You get bad grades, they find a way of getting a tutor, they get somebody to fix your grades for you. You get in trouble with the law or whatever, they hire an expensive lawyer and you don't have to face any consequences.
You're not the one digging yourself out of the shit.
No. You're not solving any of your own problems. You've got your parents solving them for you. And so eventually that's going to go away. And there's going to come a time where you're going to have to face problems. And if you haven't developed any skill set whatsoever in terms of either dealing with disappointment, dealing with failing to realize a goal, or dealing with negative consequences of your actions, if you've never had to deal with that before, it can be really catastrophic to a psyche.
Well, we had an agent through last summer. I think he was with us for a few months. He was a really good salesperson, very charismatic, super friendly, like a good guy. But he went from probably, my guess is maybe being like really, really overparented or really, really underparented. And then he went into college, and for whatever reason, he passed college, but he was probably involved in a frat or something. And how I knew him was he would come in. He was a bit smelly because he didn't shower every day. And then he would, whenever he made money, he would go out and drink as much as he could that night. I don't know if he did drugs. I know he definitely drank. And then he would pass out wherever and then come in the next day. And there were days I had to be like, dude, you got to leave the office. You don't smell. You don't smell good. But he didn't have a limiter. Like he didn't have this awareness, and he also didn't have a limiter. So he would just drink. One time we were having some wine in the office, and this is when he declared himself to be sober again. And we have an office of pretty free-flowing alcoholic beverages. We were drinking some wine in the office. He said, "Hey, can I have a cup of wine?" And I was like, well, I'll give you a little bit, but we're not like really partying. We're just having some drinks. And he drank the glass of wine. He came back and he said, can I have a little bit more? And then he did. Now, I was in a different room in the office, different whole other area in the office. Apparently, he'd been going into my office and drinking my scotch in between his glass of wine. And we found him like an hour later passed out in the hallway.
So he was an alcoholic.
He was a major, but I also believe there are drug issues, but also like, I think there's a lot of issues. But he just didn't have any like stability. Like he just couldn't, he lived in an apartment with like 12 people. So like as cheap as it goes, and he would cover that bill and close the next deal. But for the most time, my interaction with him was he was just a young guy who like didn't shower on a regular basis.
Yeah, but
for the most part,
he was on the tail end of a bender.
Well, yeah, but for the most part, pretty well put together. His parents would send him money, and he'd buy new clothes and stuff like that. But interesting fellow. Ultimately, I think we may have let him go. I think we fired him once, and then we rehired him on certain grounds, and then he quit shortly thereafter that. But we also cut his hair in the office. His hair was getting really out of control, and we bought some clippers, and one of the guys in the office could cut some hair, and we buzzed him up, and it was a pretty good job. And we laid down stuff on the floor, and then pulled it all up, and that was it. A full service brokerage, if you ask me.
Yeah. Yeah, that story makes me think of two things. The first is, I remember when we first moved to South Carolina, and you worked at Enterprise.
Yeah.
One of your coworkers had a real problem with alcohol. You know who I'm talking about.
Oh yeah. Exactly.
And so that was our first, because like when I was in college, like I drank an absolute shitload. I look back at what I did, and like if I were to try and repeat some of the weeks that I had in college today, I don't think I would survive. I think it would literally kill me. But my I'm not kidding.
I believe
I look back at some of the nights that I had. I was like, I could not do that. And so the amount of drinking that happens in college, I don't think you can really compare to post college. So I didn't really have a solid grasp as to what an alcoholic looked like. Because my only reference was college, where by most definitions, all of us were alcoholics.
But that's it. Alcoholism, I don't think is. I mean, you depend on where you're stretching, but I don't think it's defined on how much you drink.
No, it isn't.
It's defined on how it affects your life.
So that's to my point. I remember. So this guy, he at one of the stories was that there was a picture on the front page of the Charleston newspaper of him passed out on a corner of like meeting in like Calhoun Street or whatever.
Like a main drag. And
yeah.
he just passed out.
And there was just a picture of him on the front page about Charleston's drinking problem. But I remember there was one night that we were hanging out with, you and I went out to one of your coworkers' apartments or whatever to have some drinks and just like, a pretty low-key party. Like we were not raging. And when we showed up, he was completely normal because I think that was the very beginning of the night. Yeah. And after only 2 or 3 drinks, his behavior changed dramatically. And it was just like the night ended with they had a like liquor slide, like an ice slide that you could pour shots of liquor down and then you put your head under. Yeah, yeah, that's it. And the night ended with him jumping across the table and doing a luge on the liquor luge. And then
oh god, I don't know.
So like it broke the table, broke the luge. It was a huge mess or whatever. And it was just like the dude sober would have never done anything like that. And so one of the conclusions
sober he wasn't the most normal.
No, but
he could pass with a good haircut and some clean clothes.
Yeah, but the conclusion that I kind of took away from that was what separates a normal person and an alcoholic is that you see this profound change in the way that they act when they're under the influence of alcohol.
But not even that much. You'll see.
No, I'm not saying like they have to be drunk. I'm saying that like even a small amount of alcohol will invoke this large change in their personality.
Yeah, no,
Um,
I agree completely.
and when
Like,
people try and argue with me that alcoholism isn't a real disease, that's one of the things that I tell them is I say, we've all been around somebody that's like that. You can't tell me that alcoholism isn't a disease when we can see the real effects of it. We can see that some people are more susceptible to it than others. They haven't done
yeah.
anything to be susceptible
And
to
what's
it,
making
but
them that much more susceptible is the disease.
that's my point.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. Oh man.
Well, and so the other story. So 2 weeks ago, I was hanging out with a friend that I knew from back when I was working in bars. He moved away from Charleston, just moved back, and he's got a new roommate, and she has two kids. One of whom's like 8, the other's I think 12. And she was talking
Single,
about her.
single
What
guy that the single guy that lives with a
he
roommate
lit.
has two kids.
So he moved into a house. Him and his friend moved into this house. And this chick has two kids already.
So how many? Wait, that live also in the house.
Yeah. This
Okay,
particular night, we were having a couple drinks at her house. Her kids were with their grandparents or something.
but there's 5 people that live in this house regularly.
Apparently,
Two of them are children.
yes.
How many bedrooms is the house?
I don't know, probably 3 or 4.
Mm, okay, four
It,
would be the reason. Four would be the
I
lowest.
think him and his friend are sharing a bedroom. I don't know. It doesn't. Like maybe
All right.
it doesn't. We're missing the point. The point of the story
Well,
is
no, I mean, I'm trying to figure out if we're dealing with, somebody who's 28 years old and has a starter job in finance and, has a good credit score, or if we're dealing with somebody who like works at Walmart part-time and works at Target part-time and drives an 18-year-old car and has a,
uh,
618
so
credit. I'm just trying to figure out who
yeah.
we're
No, she has a decent job working at a law firm as like a paralegal or whatever.
Oh, she
And
owns
then,
the home.
huh? Yeah. So she owns the home.
And she rents the rooms to make the mortgage.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
I'm talking about the other people. I assume that.
Oh, yeah. So my two buddies, right now they're working primarily as like delivery drivers here at DoorDash and the like.
What do you suspect their credit scores to be?
I don't know and I don't care because it's not part of this story.
Because you could be a DoorDasher. I'm just saying. Sorry to interrupt this story because I know you're going somewhere. But you could be a DoorDasher with a 780 credit score because you're a hard worker and you got to make ends meet, or you could be a DoorDasher with a 560 credit score because that's where you set your standard of living.
For these guys, I would imagine it's probably somewhere in the middle, but probably trending more towards the bottom end of the spectrum.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. We set the stage.
All right. So, anyways, she's talking about her two children, and my friend says, "Dude, her 12-year-old daughter is a certified genius." Now, when people say that, I generally am skeptical because a lot of people think kids are smart just because they're their own kids or whatever.
Oh, my question is certified.
But when she started describing her daughter or whatever, and she showed me some videos of her daughter talking about some of these things, and I'm like, this kid's smarter than I am.
Oh, that probably goes to exposure.
No. Like this kid is legitimately like probably 3 or 4 standard deviations out in terms of IQ.
And on what are you driving that from? This video.
Well, for one, she's already taking classes as a 12-year-old. She's taking some classes at places like Stanford and MIT. Basic stuff, but the like she's going to like NASA camps for these kind of like gifted kids, and
Well, I mean,
she's already skipped a grade. She wants to skip another grade. The point of the story is, I was telling her like that for one, I'm not as smart as your daughter was, but a lot of the things that you're telling me about her remind me of what I was like when I was a kid. And I said, one thing that she's going to need to experience, and sooner rather than later, is up until this point in her life, anything academic has been extremely easy for her because she's ridiculously smart.
mm-hmm.
And she reads 90,000 pages a year. She reads any book you put in front of her. She teaches herself computer coding or whatever else. But there's going to come a point where there's going to be some kind of a subject matter that she just doesn't get, that she struggles with. She's going to get, for the first time in her life, a B on a test, a B on a paper.
Or a C, and that could be.
Right. But there's going to come a time where through whatever circumstances, she doesn't succeed in the way that she has always known.
Mm-hmm.
And she's going to need to learn what that feels like. And it's better for her to figure that out now than when she's 18 or 19 and still as smart as she is now, but having never met any failure.
But you don't think that accepting a C in a class will give her an experience of compromise, and now she's
No.
realized it's not that bad? Like, because the first time I got a C, I was like, oh, it's not that bad, and then I didn't work as hard, and then I was a B student. When I got my first C, it was in a class called Humanities when I was at LaSalle, and I got a C because I refused to write a paper because the class was misbehaving, and the principal or we got in trouble with the principal. It went to the principal's level, and the teacher was like, all right, you guys have to write a paper. It's going to be 3 pages long, and it's got to say why you shouldn't do this. And I just wrote in big letters, obviously in pencil on the top of the page, because that's how we didn't type anything back then. I wrote, do unto others. It was a Catholic school, so I wrote, do unto others as thou shalt want them to do to thou, or something along those lines. And he gave me a 0 on the paper, which obviously is a fucking black hole when it comes to your fucking grade in the class.
Oh, yeah.
But I was like, fuck, I'm not right. I'm the best behaved kid in the entire school right now, because my mom promised me if I got straight A's, I could go back to public school. So I was like, dude, like, there's no way I'm not getting an A in every class. But I drew my line. But when I got this first C, I was like, oh, life isn't that bad.
Yeah.
And my goal wasn't to go to fucking Princeton. So.
Yeah. Well, I
think it's impressive. I think it's impressive that this girl is taking classes at like Stanford or something, because the way you teach at Stanford isn't the way you teach at community college.
Oh, no.
So she's at the learning ability of somebody who goes to Stanford, which is also impressive. Not just the classes that she's taking at that age, but her ability to learn, I think.
No, she's probably taking pretty basic classes.
Sure.
But the fact that at age 12 to take any college class, any legitimately college level class, is impressive by itself.
At age 12, to be shoulder to shoulder with somebody who's 17, 18, 19, 20 years old.
Oh, yeah. And part of her struggle is, like, she has, in some ways, the maturity of someone in that age. She's already kind of accustomed to the academic environment and thinking like someone who's either a college student or a college professor, but she hasn't had the time to develop the maturity yet to know how to engage. So she'll end up forming these emotional attachments with people that are 2 or 3 times their age. And her mom's just like, look, I get where you're coming from, but like, you're 12 and these people are 24.
But she's also living bedroom wall to headboard to headboard with somebody who's 28, 30 years old.
Well, and she also has a younger sister that's 8. And she goes to public school with people her own age.
I know you're not a kid haver, but your 12-year-old is sharing a wall headboard to headboard with somebody who's 28 years old. She's a female. He's a male.
But it's not. The point that her mom was making is that, like, she'll develop these attachments with, like, professors or other students in, like, these college classes or whatever.
So she's very detached. There's a lot of psychology that goes into fucking being a human. She's got some issues. She's filling it with academia, which is good. Like, it's not a bad thing. But that's why I think some adversity when you're a kid. She's got fucking issues, man, and she's brilliant. That's what I'm saying.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying that she needs to face more adversity early, because if you wait too long, that adversity will be crushing. And I actually think it works the other way, where if you think about, like, the first time you fall in love, the first time you're in, like, a serious relationship, like, if that happens pretty early on in your life, then you are able to kind of develop a framework as to what relationships look like and feel like. And so you are less likely to fall into a toxic relationship because you've got experience with the way that people interact. But if you don't have your first serious relationship until your early or mid-20s and you have no reference frame or whatever, then you can end up way too deep in your head, like, in way over your head on a relationship and not know any different.
True.
I think about our friend from Albany, who started dating, like, whose first serious relationship was until he was like 19 or 20.
Well, my first relationship came pretty late, and I probably paid the price.
Yeah, but you were like 16 or 17.
I think I was 18. Actually, I was a senior. But his was later than that. His was college, right?
Yeah.
Um,
And remember how toxic that was?
and it was yeah, but he latched on, and
Right, because you didn't know any better, because you had never had a relationship before.
well, I let mine play out longer than it should have too, and ended in a bad way. But that's dealing with bullshit and dealing with shitty shit is part of growing. You know, I follow all these like mentorship podcasts and Instagram accounts and shit like that, and everybody's talking about how fucking awesome failure is for you. Failure is not awesome.
No, no,
Failure is what you try to avoid so goddamn hard.
no. The consequences of failure, long term,
Exactly.
often are good.
Well,
But failure in the moment sucks always. Like,
and you're fighting hard against it. But,
yeah,
but ultimately you fail. You're failing, and you fail, and then you've got to move on to something else. So most times the people that are fighting failure really hard are going to come back pretty well, and then because of that failure, hopefully they came back better. And not everybody does, but that's
no.
just by failing.
But the whole thing is like failure in the moment always sucks. If it doesn't, it's not failure.
Dude, so
And
much shit in the moment sucks. I
right.
had a nice Saturday and Sunday, and in the moment, I caught myself several times thinking like, oh wait, I'm relaxing now. I don't feel relaxed. Like this is, I gotta put my phone down. I just need to and chill and enjoy the taste of the coffee that I'm drinking and just think about that and like not be fucking somewhere else. But almost everything in the moment fucking sucks, man. Like right now, I'm stressed about people sending me text messages, people I hear outside of the office door. Like, I'm stressed that fucking the AC went off in the office. It's going from 77 degrees to probably fucking 85. There's a lot of shit going on that's stressful. A lot of shit in the moment. You're focused on the shit that you shouldn't be. What I need to do is focus on what we're doing right now and focus on the positive. But what I'm saying is a lot of things in the moment are bad. It's what you choose to focus on in the moment. In retrospect, you can say, oh yeah, that was a really good time for me because I failed and now I'm here.
Well,
But in the moment, it wasn't a good time for you.
like my whole thing is like, failure in the moment's going to have to suck, but it can offer you opportunities to show you things that you wouldn't have been able to find out otherwise. So I've refereed soccer for over 20 years at this point, and I consider myself to be pretty good at it. So at this point, when I'm working with people that are less experienced and they have a good game, or if I've worked with them several times in a row and they've had good games, what I will tell them is, look, the game that you just did was easy, and you've been able to make it to this point with the skills that you have, but there's going to come a time where the things that you've been doing that have worked up until this point are not going to work for you. And you're going to need to learn new skills. And the best way to do that is go and work a game that is way above your level, or just have a game where everything goes terribly, where it doesn't matter what you do, everybody's unhappy with you. And at the end of the game, everybody's miserable, including yourself. And you walk away from the game saying, that was awful from start to finish. And I don't even know why I'm here. I don't know why I'm doing what I'm doing. And like,
It sounds like a feeling you've had before.
oh my God. But I've seen too many people that like, and I hate to single this out, but like I've worked with a couple female referees that are pretty attractive that have worked like, so the league that I work the most often in Charleston is just an open men's league. Anybody that's above age 18 can sign up for it. And so like you've got these young attractive females that are working that can kind of be able to utilize the fact that they're an attractive female to get away from the fact that they just made a bad call,
Yeah.
because all they need to do is just kind of smile at the guys and it's okay. And I say, look, that
difficult.
strategy is great. Use that. But there's going to come a time where if you're working a college game or a professional game, they're not going to care that you're attractive. They're going to care that the call that you just made them is potentially costing them their job or their scholarship or a chance at a championship. And the fact that you're attractive doesn't matter. And so that strategy works here. It's not going to work later. You need to get yourself into an environment where that doesn't work for you so you can develop other skills. Still have that skill. Work with what you've got. But you need to And the only way you're ever going to discover these other skills is by failing with the skills that you have right now.
No, but that's exactly kind of where where I wanted to go with this. You have to develop other skills to cope and to deal. We're gonna drop off Instagram Live in a second. If you guys are watching right now, we'll be right back on after this ends. I don't know, for some reason we lost a whole bunch, but thank you for watching. We'll be right back. But I think that's what fucking growth is.
Right.
It's an experience of discomfort. And think about like any animal that like outgrows their shell or whatever the fuck animals outgrow. There's extreme discomfort,
And also vulnerability.
which you're either forced to change for survival, or you choose to change for survival, or you end up living in the fucking projects. You live in a fucking mobile home. You don't change, and then life is just fucking shitty.
Yeah.
No, I mean, there's nice mobile homes.
I think the whole idea of like
there are nice mobile homes.
I think your idea about like the insect molting through its exoskeleton is actually really good. Which is like, in order for them to grow, they have to shed their old exoskeleton, and there's going to be a period of time that their new exoskeleton hasn't hardened, and they're extremely vulnerable.
Yeah, but that's like right after a breakup when you just feel super vulnerable and you're like, fuck, like my life feels like it's ending. Sorry, I got to restart the Instagram stream.
Yeah, but the whole idea is that after you get past that period of vulnerability, you now have a bigger, stronger skeleton.
Exactly. But in the moment, it's really, like when you're fresh off a breakup, you're not thinking that way. And chemistry wise in your brain, it's really.
Well, it's the same thing. Like if you get fired from a job, like you can take that one of two different ways, and you can get mad and blame it on the employer, or you can look and say, what are the skills that they thought I lacked that I need to develop?
Sure. I very right before I started real estate, I think I might have been doing real estate actually at the time, part-time. And I went for an interview with like at a different division of whatever I was doing. I think I was doing car rentals. I was going to go to fleet sales.
Okay.
And that was a big deal. Like fleet was a big thing because now you're meeting with big companies that need to fucking buy a fleet, right?
Yeah.
Let's see, when was this? In
2011 or 12, probably.
11-ish. Yeah, 2011. So I was 20. How old was I in 2011? 26?
26, probably.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, so,
25, 26.
I contacted a previous manager of mine who had gone in the same direction, and I got a bunch of literature, and I actually found out what fleet sales does to sell their clients, and I created a very similar binded package, resume, selling point, selling plan for myself. I had it bound like with the wire bindings. I don't know if
But you put in a lot of effort to make a good presentation.
yeah, like you see this binder right here with the spiral bound. I created a whole plan to go and sell these guys, and it looked a lot like their sales plan. I'm like, if my sales plan looks like their sales plan, this is what they're selling. How could they not buy this?
Yeah.
And then I found out that my manager, not my assistant manager, not my branch manager, my area or my regional area manager was going for the same job as me.
So it didn't matter what you did.
I didn't find that out until a long while later. But that was, in retrospect, it broke me at the time. I was like, I'm never going anywhere with this. Like, and that's why I went into real estate. But then I found out afterwards, like that was my competition at the time, and I lost. But who the fuck? I mean, I wouldn't hire me over the other person.
Yeah.
Doesn't make sense.
No.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, that's kind of advice that I just give to anybody is that you're going to need at some point you're going to need to fail and you're going to need to know what it feels like to do so.
But so
And
if we didn't grow up rich, but here's my thinking about like having kids. Because I don't have any kids yet, as you clearly know. But anybody watching may not. I'm kind of like fend for yourself type of parent.
oh, I not that I ever want to have kids, but I still think that like you need to empower your kids to make decisions and let them deal with the consequences and only bail them out when things really, really get to the
Out of
point where they can't handle.
out of their own control. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I want to make like very autonomous, very well educated kids. Where like one thing I see all these people talking gibberish to fucking babies, and I'm like, what? Like, you ever see somebody talk for their animal? You ever seen where somebody's like they're walking their dog, and then like the dog comes up against somebody, and they start talking for the dog?
Vaguely, it's such a
They
strange
do this
thing.
like dopey voice, like, "Oh, I really like you. Scratch me under my fucking crotch, rub my neck. I really like it." Blah, blah, blah. And they start talking fucking gibberish, like a fucking retarded animal would talk. And that's the
Um,
personality they've assigned in their mind for the dog. But either way, the dog isn't saying this.
no,
It's the person saying it. So I see people talk to babies and they talk in gibberish. I don't know anything about baby psychology, but I imagine that's not helpful for the kid. That's my theory.
I can't think it would be, but I'm not an expert on this.
But kids are probably learning by, like they're learning words and they're learning how things happen. I just think that gibberish doesn't help their brains develop.
I don't think so either.
Um,
When I think about it, when I was a kid, like one of the things that I remember most distinctly is that a lot of the interactions that I had with adults, I if I and I'm just realizing this now, but most of the interactions that I had with adults, I remember them treating me more like an adult than like a kid,
and that's,
and
yeah.
I I didn't I don't know, like I'm processing all of this right now, but the idea of treat a kid like an adult and
Well, treat a kid like an equal. Treat a kid like somebody who's learning. Just think about the adults that we have in our society now. We're fucking retards.
okay, yeah, but
I mean,
it's that empowers a kid. If you treat a kid like you would any other adult and give them and then if they act in such a way that they no longer deserve that treatment, fine. But always let them start out as an equal. And the kid's going to learn how to interact with adults and how to be more mature because you're demonstrating that behavior to
but
them.
it's by demonstration.
Yeah.
Exactly where I'm going with this. I wish I had kind of pre-thought out some of the direction of this conversation, but
No, we never do, with the exception of the negotiation.
we don't. Which what just popped into my head though, which you may think is funny or maybe not, but I've been looking to buy houses because I brought this up earlier with you. Been looking at moving to New Jersey or to Long Island. So all I want is space. I don't want the house isn't important to me. The home
Well,
is.
the idea of paying a mortgage and developing equity in some place instead of just burning money on rent every single month has to be appealing.
Sure, but also like at this point, like if I want to start having kids and stuff, like I'm over New York. I want to. I grew up a certain way. I want to be able to deliver at least a taste of that to the kids that I have. But I just want space. I want privacy. Like I can hear my neighbor fuck. Like that's not privacy.
Yeah, and having your own house, you don't have to worry about that.
But plus, like I want to buy some workout equipment. I have fucking 725 square feet. Like that's not. I have a rower in the center of my living room. Like you can't walk up to the fucking coffee table right now. So, like I want to have. Now that all the gyms are closed and shit, like I'm just like reevaluating shit. I'm like I spend fucking 10, 11, 12 hours a day in my office in Midtown Manhattan. Like that's cool. Like I got a fucking taste of Manhattan, man. Like I reek like Manhattan. Like I'm a New Yorker as far as I'm concerned. Like people argue whatever you want about being a New Yorker. Like I'm in so much of a New Yorker. I'm fucking done, man. There's fucking homeless people taking shits in McDonald's cups, down the block. I'm out for right
Yeah, that's
Maybe,
peak New York right there.
maybe in the future I'll come back, but
Well, you could, and I think what you're saying is that you've got enough of a taste in New York through your office that you can live outside of New York,
and
commute in,
still
and
and
that's enough
still
New
be
York for you.
and still be New York. But really, what I'm thinking is like, I want to move out to New Jersey. I've been looking at houses on Zillow, but I have this love, like this emotional attachment to the homes. Like, oh, this is the next step in my life. And then I reach out to the real estate agent, and half of them just treat me like shit because they think I'm another real estate agent in New Jersey, which I'm not. I'm actually a customer. I'm actually like a consumer. But they treat me like another co-broker, which they don't want a co-broker. They want a direct client where they make double the commission. If they think I'm a co-broker, they instantly lose half their commission.
But aren't you opening up the communication saying, I'm looking to buy?
I am, but they just see the emails. So I've been like sending emails from my junk email account. So, but either way, I developed this emotional attachment to these properties, and then somebody else buys them. I always see the pending update, and the way it makes me feel is when I'm on Facebook and I see an ex-girlfriend or somebody I had a relationship with before is now engaged or is now having kids or is now off the market for all intents and purposes. And it's really, it's really difficult for me. And it's not really difficult, but it just, I get that heart twinge. We're like, oh, all right.
I don't know.
That chapter is closed.
Recently, I've been looking at properties out in California, and for me, like, I don't know, like I'll look at pictures of different houses or whatever in Northern California, and to me, all I'm looking at is how well is the building constructed, what's the price, what's the location. I don't develop any emotion about any of these places.
It's so emotional. I just picture my future, man. Like I have fucking photo albums of this house in the background already in the back of my head. Like it's
for me. I'm just saying, you're asking $350,000 for that. Get out of here,
dude. God. So I mean, where we grew up was the property values are still not even that high where we grew up.
No, not really. Not compared to New York City or Northern California.
I mean, I feel like for $500,000 you could buy a fucking mansion where we grew up. I just the economy doesn't support.
Yeah, I'd say out in the country you could get yourself something pretty banger.
God, I mean, you get a huge place like where we grew up. I mean, I don't know exactly. Your parents still live there, so you would probably be more in tune with property values than I am.
No, not at all, dude. Like, they've had their house for as long as I've been alive. So,
but I just, down in the New Jersey, the New York City kind of metro area, the same thing with California. Like the prices are just so different, which also, it should be a reminder that like we talk about politics in the U.S., like New York and California and Florida and Texas to a degree are not the greater United States.
which is something that actually, when you ask people from foreign countries about their opinion of the United States, the representation of the United States in media is very often one of those four states: New York, California, Florida, or Texas.
From the rest of the world perspective, yeah, exactly. But think about the population in these areas. Think about the output. Think about the output in these areas in terms of goods, services, media.
If California was its own country, it would be the 13th largest. It would have the 13th largest GDP.
Oh, GDP. Okay.
Yeah. So if California were its own country, California is bigger than Japan.
Yeah. No. Fuck yeah, it's bigger than Japan.
Actually, California is pretty close to Japan. Like, it's a really interesting comparison between California and Japan because they line up in a lot of ways. But think about that. One of our states.
Reverse.
Yeah. There's all sorts of crazy comparisons between California and Japan.
I've never thought about the comparison between California and Japan.
But the geography thing about, like, it's about the same size and, like, yeah, it's kind of a mirror image without the islands and everything. But think about that. One of our states has the population and GDP similar to Japan. The population's lower because Japan's got like a super dense population in certain areas. But like, yeah, one of our states has the GDP of Japan, and then there's 40 other states.
And Japan is a major producer.
Oh yeah, Japan's got a pretty solid economy.
Electronics. That's
their big problem is fertility.
Fertility is low in Japan, and people just don't fuck each other.
Here's one of my
And
favorite statistics.
when I went to Japan, I noticed what I experienced was that men and women don't spend that much time together. There are these weird sex shops that white people couldn't go to, basically, like American people. Well, not just white people, non-Asian people couldn't go to. But there wasn't a lot of asexual people.
Yep.
A lot of young people with zero, because I saw a lot of drunk people with zero kind of social skills.
So yeah, that's what I mean by fertility is not necessarily like their inability to reproduce. It's that culturally there's something going on there where people don't want to have kids. And as someone who doesn't want to have kids, I don't judge it, but I'm just saying that like from a national standpoint or whatever, the fact that they have a negative growth rate is going to be a problem. Here's my favorite statistic about Japan.
I want to talk about a negative growth rate, but go ahead.
This is quick. Japan sells more adult diapers than baby diapers.
I didn't know that was a statistic, but it's my understanding that the old age population is outgrowing the baby population.
Yeah, and that's what the statistic reflects, is that more old people are buying diapers than young people having kids are buying diapers for their kids.
But that's good from an earther, environmentalist perspective, is that, there's certain areas that the population has stopped growing.
Yeah, there's some patterns there in terms of like a kind of a curve that every developing country follows in terms of its birth rate and how it levels out as it develops.
I think that's superficial. I really think, like, you think about New York State, and then fucking drive to New York State and see how much extra space there is. So we could have some other influencer on the economy or on the society, and people will start fucking like fucking rabbits, and there's so much extra space.
No, what I'm saying is that if you look at take third world countries that tend to have really high like population growth rates or whatever, as you watch a society progress from third world developing nation to developing nation in improper to a first world developed nation or whatever, what you'll see is that, and it's remarkable how well it tracks. You can look at like countries across history and see like from when they were developing to when they became developed, the trend lines are almost all the same, where as they become more developed or whatever, their birth rates decline.
Yeah, no, I don't think that. Yeah, I think that's very clear with.
And you can look at countries like you can look at countries like I think Taiwan and South Korea are good ones, but also like certain Middle Eastern countries that 50 years ago didn't have the economics that they do now, and you can see that the birth rates as the GDP per capita increase, the birth rates decline, and they kind of level off.
Kids anymore. You're having 2 kids kind of max.
Yeah, but
like, how many? Let me ask you a question. How many siblings does your mom have?
My mom had 1 brother.
Just Dan. All right. How about your father?
I believe he had 2 sisters.
So that's 3. My mom had 3 sisters. My father had 2 sisters and a brother. So that's 4 and 4. So your
parents put together is 8. My parents put together is 5.
And how many are your kids? All right,
0.
Is your generation? No, your generation.
I've got 2 brothers. So my parents had 3 kids.
Exactly. And then you're going to output 0.
Yep.
David might be unlucky and put out 1.
I could see the Durf putting out 1 or 2.
I don't think Casey's going to hit the mark there.
No. There's lots of problems there.
But he's a good guy. I like Casey.
He's gotten better.
I don't see the recreation happening there.
Yeah, he needs to find a willing partner to begin with.
Well, yeah, fair enough. But I mean, it is the world. It is
so Japan's negative growth rate that's their biggest problem. And when you're talking about while you were there and what you saw, those are all kind of legacy impacts of their collectivist workaholic culture.
Sure, but also not just being workaholics, but the social skills have fallen a lot. A lot of people spending a lot of time behind screens. You're
Hmm.
technologically advanced, which should be an indicator of where a lot of other places are going.
The other thing is that the vast majority of Japan's population lives in a few cities, all of which are extremely dense.
Yeah,
So,
Tokyo, Kyoto, somewhere else probably. But
yeah,
density, but how are people that are super dense not fucking each other again like rabbits? So
because it's really an oppressive kind of culture where it's really hard to be able to develop a social life because to some degree self-expression and standing out from the crowd, the collectivism is they don't like seeing other people kind of like attention. Garnering attention is seen as a negative in Japan, so you don't want to stand out. You work a lot, so it's really hard to be able to develop a personality because you're not supposed to stand out. You don't have the time to be able to do much because like it's not uncommon for people to like, especially in beginning jobs or like workers in their early 20s or whatever, to be working 70, 80, 90, 100 hours a
it's
week.
fucking insane. Hold on one second, guys. I want to hit some viewer questions with you. Amanda, hey, what's up? Coco, if you got any questions, let me know. Rodolfo, interact, man. We got questions. All right, just let me know what you want to hear. Give me some questions, whether it's about Japan, whether it's about catfishing, or growing up in university. That's what we're here for. Because we're going to sign off soon. If you guys have questions, let me know. Have you traveled to Asia?
No, I have not. I would like to go to Japan. Japan and Taiwan are both interesting to me.
I want to go to Shanghai.
I would not step foot in China right now.
Well, good reason for that. But why Taiwan?
Because they're very similar to Japan in a lot of ways, but I think their culture is a little bit more open. And I honestly don't know very much about Taiwan, but it just seems to me like a really fascinating country, and it has really cool geography. There's a lot to see there. Same thing for like also Singapore or even the Philippines, which is more of like a developing nation. But you've been pretty familiar with Filipino culture in the past, and when I worked in restaurants, the ownership of my restaurant was Filipino, and so I just think, huh?
I didn't know that.
Yeah. The restaurant that I worked at for 3 years was owned by a Filipino woman, and I'm really familiar with Filipino culture, and I love Filipinos. They're so friendly, and like I've never had a negative experience with the Filipinos. So like the Philippines are interesting.
There's a decent Filipino population in Charleston, South Carolina.
There is.
Yeah, it's pretty big from my recollection. Probably pretty big. I was surprised. I didn't realize there was that many Filipino people.
Yeah, but yeah, any experience I've had with Filipinos has been positive, and so I have to imagine that like the Philippines in general are just going to be filled with people like that. And then yeah, Taiwan seems to be kind of like, I would imagine, pretty similar to Japan, although and they're
more Chinese.
Yeah, but the thing is, Taiwan is not China because they said we don't want to be a part of China.
That's a weird. It's going to happen to the U.S. soon. I feel like we're going to have, especially, it depends on the next president, but I feel like the next 2 or 3 presidents are real. We're going to have a lot of that going on in the U.S. I think this. I don't have any doubt.
Well, the new Cold War is going to be between U.S. and China.
Well, I mean, why would it?
It already exists to some degree.
The U.S. thinks we're so great, but but you got countries like Russia and China, which
you can't compare Russia and China.
No, but geographically, Russia.
They're close. Yeah, they're close geographically for sure.
And then you got China population-wise, technology-wise, and their government is way different than mechanically. China could get hundreds of thousands of fucking people, soldiers.
Millions.
Whereas that's not happening here.
Well, yeah, you're comparing a population of 1.5 billion versus 350 million.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm saying the new Cold War is going to be China, because if you look at like the 60s and 70s, or 50s, 60s, and 70s, the height of the Cold War, the economies and the GDP and everything between the United States and Russia were much more comparable. Russia's fallen off. And
but it's still a big amount of space.
yeah, but the space doesn't matter very much.
They get a couple of extra cold years where people fuck a little extra. They get a couple extra people.
Russia has problems with fertility as well. China is really going to be the next adversary for us because they can compete with us. They have the population, and their government has such a strong control over like just the citizenry and like, and ideologically they're really oppositional to the United States. And the thing that China has that Russia didn't, and this is really the big difference, is even at its height, Russia did not have
penis size. I know that.
What?
It's not penis size.
No, it's not penis size. Economic impact is Russia's economy, even during the 60s and 70s, doesn't compare to China's economy today. Everything that China's been doing has been to grow their economy and increase their influence in the world. And so that's why you see countless examples of international companies refusing to call China out on any number of their bad practices, is because economically these companies depend so heavily on Chinese manufacturing and also the Chinese retail market of being able to sell their goods in China. They both produce and sell in China to such a high degree that they cannot, for their business's own sake, risk jeopardizing the Chinese market.
Yeah.
Whereas Russia, even during its height of its power, didn't compare.
Well, you got 1 billion in fucking China. What's the population of Russia? You know?
Population of Russia? Good question. Let me look it up.
You tell me, and then we're signing off because it's late. And hi from Arkansas.
So Russia has 145 million people.
Oh, that's it?
Yep.
That's an icy place, man.
Population in the United States is about 330 million, so I was off. So we're about double Russia, a little more than double Russia. Population of China,
which is smaller,
1.393, so 1.4. Wow, so China
billion.
is a
billion.
Yeah, so China is 4 times more populated than the United States.
Wow. What's the geographic extent of that?
China is roughly the same size geographically as the United States.
As the U.S., that's what I thought. And Russia is what, like 2 or 3 times? Yeah, it's 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, but so much of that is just Siberian wasteland.
Sure, of course. All right, dude. We're gonna catch up Thursday. If you guys are watching, catch us Thursday. We're gonna wrap up.
Let's make Thursdays a time for us to respond to some of the comments that we got and ignored today.
We did ignore a lot of comments. Australia, 25th night. All right. I'll catch up with you later. I'm going to sign off, and I'll see you.
All right. Sounds good.
See ya.
Cheers.
Oh, shit. You still there? You watch this whole thing? Man, you're really dedicated, and for that, I appreciate you. So, to show your love, comment, like, subscribe, share, all of the above, and I promise to show you some love back. All right, thank you. See you soon.